بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وآدم ونوح وإبراهيم وموسى وعيسى وما بينهم من النبيين والمرسلين صلوات الله وسلم عليهم أجمعين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وآدم ونوح وإبراهيم وموسى وعيسى وما بينهم من النبيين والمرسلين صلوات الله وسلم عليهم أجمعين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وآدم ونوح وإبراهيم وموسى وعيسى وما بينهم من النبيين والمرسلين صلوات الله وسلام عليهم أجمعين. Asalaamu Alaikum wa rahmatullah. We're on line, what line are we on? 93, right? So we left off وكل شيء هالك قد خسسوا عمومه فاطلب لما قد لخصوا 93 ولا تخذ في الروح إذ ما ورد نص عن الشارع لكن وجد لمالكه سورة كالجسد فحسبك النص بهذا السند. So 93 states, and do not delve into the ruh, do not delve into the spirit or the soul, the ruh, as to its haqiqah, its reality or its essence. Since ma warada nasun, ma negating the negating ma, there has not come, i.e. in our tradition in the Quran and Sunnah, there has not come nasun, a text an shari'i, from the lawgiver. Okay, and the shari', whenever the term shari' is used, it refers to ultimately Allah. Haqiqatan, it refers to Allah. Majazan, to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allah is the shari', Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the lawgiver. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as representative of the divine on earth, that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam is doing tashri', i.e. Conveying the message. But وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak on his own accord, rather it is revelation from above. So sent down, so that a shari' would refer to Allah and His Messenger in the Quran and Sunnah. So there's no nas from the shari', there's no nas from the Quran and Sunnah about the reality, the essence, the mahiyya, the quiddity of the ruh. Lakin wujida, however, there does exist li Malik in the madhab of Imam Malik, and it's actually one of his students, a statement by one of his students, or one of the early Maliki Imams that's found in their school. He suratun kal jasadi, that the ruh has an image. The ruh is an image. It is a surah kal jasad, just like the physical body. فَحَسْبُكَ النَّسُ بِهَذَا السَّنَدِ. So that nas with that sanad is sufficient for you. That nas is sufficient bihada sanad because it's in the Maliki tradition. So it's part and parcel of Sunni Islam. So the ruh is the subject of a lot of discussion. It was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The Jews at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, some of them, they asked, when Quraysh went to them and said, what should we ask him to see if he's a true prophet? One of the three questions was, ask him about the ruh. And the Mufassirin mentioned that it was kind of like a trick question, because one of the signs that they had about the true prophet is that he would not speak about the ruh, he would not tell its reality. And so then Allah Ta'ala revealed in Surah Al-Isra, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ, they ask you about the ruh. قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي, say the ruh is from the matter or command of my Lord. Okay, so this is why it's called Rabbani. It is something that's Rabbani, it is lordly, because it's from the command of our Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, and you have not been given of knowledge except for a little bit. So this was the Quranic response to that question. And so Allah Ta'ala did not reveal its reality, but rather just ascribed it to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the what's being mentioned here by Imam Laqani, the way of Sunni Islam is to not delve into the ruh as to its reality. What they will say, however, is that it certainly is something that exists. And contrary to reductionists today, scientific reductionists, that try to negate the existence of the soul. And so they say that the human being is nothing but a bunch of molecules bumping into one another, just like the stuff that makes up the world. Human beings are just another material part of the world. And so we're just neurons. We're just action potentials. That's all we are. There's nothing more there. Francis Crick wrote a book called The Astonishing Hypothesis. The Astonishing Hypothesis. And his argument, one of his first sentences, is that your joys, your sorrows, your thoughts, your emotions, your sense of free will is nothing but a bunch of molecules bumping into one another, and you're just a pack of neurons. And statements like this are basically denying the existence of the ruh. They're denying the existence of the soul of the human being. And there's a lot of consequences to that, because just like with stuff, I can choose to honor the pen, or I can choose to toss it aside because it's just stuff. So too, if the human being is reduced to a stuff, then you have the door open for a lot of oppression. And so what's called scientific racism, that you can say that you can define the human being in a new way, because we define the human being as hayawan natiq, the Aristotelian way, that the rational animal. So the rational component, natiq, is the acknowledgement of the ruh, that there is a soul, the consciousness of the human being that can reason, and it has choice, it has free will. To deny that, just to identify the human as a hayawan, and then you can say that, we only like light-colored hayawan and not light-colored hayawanat, and not dark-colored hayawanat, and etc., etc. So a lot of oppression stems from the denial of the ruh. Once the ruh is taken out of the picture, you can discriminate based off of color, race, size, shape, form, appearance, etc., etc. So the ruh is important, and we firmly believe in the existence of the ruh. It's known by reason and by revelation. Our ulama define it as a latifa, rabbaniya, nuraniya. They say that it is a subtlety, latifa, and so it's a subtlety. It's something that permeates the human being. And so some of the ulama said it's like the way water is in organic wood, that it permeates every part of the thing that it's in. So we are soaked in the ruh. The ruh is something. They say that there's a debate as to where its home is in the body. The Malikis and Shafi'is, they said it's the qalb. They said that the qalb, the heart, is the seat of the ruh, but then from that it emerges and permeates the entire body. Imam Abu Hanifa said it's the dimagh, it is the brain, but there's a connection between the dimagh and the qalb. So there is a bit of difference, but many of them, the majority, said it is the qalb that where the ruh resides, but it permeates the entire being. And it's a latifa, it's rabbaniya, because it's lordly. قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ Rabbi. So its origin is Allah's decree. Allah creates it like everything else, but Allah Ta'ala ascribes it to Himself as tashrif, as a way of honoring Bani Adam. That Bani Adam is unique amongst creation because the ruh is min amri Rabbi. It is from the command and decree of my Lord. And then they say nuraniya, it is illuminated, that the dark physical body is illuminated by this ruh that permeates the human being. And it is the seat of consciousness. It is the you and me inside of you and me. It is what perceives, it is what is addressed, it is what is held responsible, it is what is rewarded or praised for its actions. And so Imam Ghazali and others, they talk about that there's different synonyms of this subtlety, this consciousness, the person inside of us, that it can be called at times nafs, it can be called at times qalb, it can be called at times aql, it can be called at times ruh, And some of the, in the mystical tradition, they will add sir. So 5 terms. And they say, there's a bit of discussion, but many of them say, that, including Imam Ghazali, that they're all referring to the same reality. These are all 5 terms referring to the same reality. That the consciousness that permeates us, that is inside our bodies, that if its focus is if it's directed towards vices and sin and disobedience and bad adab with Allah, it's called the nafs. But if it restrains itself and withholds itself from those vices, then it's called aql. Because aqala, the root has to do with in'iqal, to tie down and restrain. So the aql, which is that which deals with intelligibles, the ultimate purpose of the rational component of the human being is to withhold from vices. That the ultimate purpose of أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, when the Quran asks us, will you not use your intellect, i.e. in adorning yourself with proper adab with Allah. This is the ultimate purpose, the telos, of the aql. And so linguistically it has to do with restraining. So when this subtlety is directed towards treating those faults and withholding itself from indulging in the wrong, then it's called aql. With the nafs, it was called nafs because of these uyub, these faults. And the faults themselves are called nafs. So when they say combat the nafs, fight the nafs, struggle against the nafs, they're talking about struggling against the faults that are in this, they're embedded in this latifa. They're embedded in the you. And the idea is that the faults can become so concretized and cemented in a person that he feels that they're part of him. And so the nafs is called nafs. The denotation of the faults is the same term, denotes the entire person, the same subtlety, because they're so entrenched in him. And so to really struggle to removing those vices, it feels like you're chipping away at a part of you. In those initial stages, it feels like you're chipping away at a part of you, and it hurts because they're so cemented. But when we do that, when we use our aql to rid ourselves of these vices, then the subtlety is called aql because we're restraining ourselves. And then eventually, when those vices are reduced, it's called qalb, which is a heart. And ideally the qalb salim, the sound heart. And the qalb, so the same subtlety now is called qalb. And the sound heart has to do with taqallub, vacillating back and forth. And they say that because once it's freed of those uyub, of the vile uyub, like jealousy, envy, showing off, being impressed with itself, etc. When it's free of those, there's basically one vice left that it has to deal with, which is not paying attention to Allah. That's really the final vice that it usually doesn't realize that it has is ghafla, is heedlessness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it vacillates, it starts making remembrance of Allah and paying attention to Allah, and so it's going back and forth between ghafla and hudur, between inattentiveness to Allah and awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so it's called a qalb. So it may not have those low vices of the vile nafs, but it's still dealing with that last one. The ghafla is considered the prison of being a human. The bashar is considered, his prison is his own humanity, i.e. his ghafla, his paying attention to himself and others and not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when the person, they're vacillating, but when they get to a state where they've broken out of that prison, then istiraha, they've found repose, and they found the raha, the relaxation, which is why it's called now ruh. The ruh has to do with raha, where it's in a state of comfort and tranquility. And this is the nafs mutma'inna, what the Quran calls the tranquil soul. That now it's the denotation of nafs, that is just the person itself. This latifa is in a state of tuma'nina, and it's called ruh then. It's aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the ruh, Allah ta'ala, what does He say? قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي, is aware of Allah. say that the ruh is from the matter of my Lord, it's not in ghafla anymore. It has a type of, it's out of the prison of its own personhood. And the mystics will add that the sir is when it's can't really focus on anything else, and so that it's just a secret between Allah and that person. So and we ask Allah to grant us such a soul. And so it's the same subtlety that grows, and this is the growth that we seek in our religion. And they give the analogy like rainwater. When water falls and it's absorbed in the dirt, that water is in dirt, but then it gets soaked in the roots, and then it moves up the roots and goes into the branches, and then that same water then results in the birth of leaves, and then ultimately there's fruit on the tree. Okay, ultimately there's fruit on the tree. So the water is the same, the subtlety is the same, but it's what it's directed towards and how it's manifested, and the consequences of it are different as it grows in those stages. And so the nafs is like in the dirt, and the ruh and the sir is like in the fruit, and the fruit is quite good, we've been told. So this is the extent to what they'll talk about the ruh. They don't talk about its reality, but they talk about the point. The point of the ruh is to go back to Allah. The point of the ruh is to connect our consciousness, to rid ourselves of vices, to grow in, get out of the vacillation of heedlessness, between heedlessness and presence with Allah, and to be in a state of consciousness of Allah, because it's the faculty of consciousness. And so it's supposed to be conscious of its Lord. Naam. Imam Malik and the Malikis, they added that it has a surah. So depending on its stage, it actually has an image. That when it's full of uyub and they're concretized and cemented in it, it actually has a very bad image. It actually, if we were shown the look of the ruh, it would look very hideous. But as it grows and as it gets out of those vices and as it gets connected to Allah, it actually has a beautiful image. The ruh has a beautiful image at those later stages. And so this is something that's mentioned. Naam. So, line 95, وَالْعَقْلُ كَالْرُوحِ. The aql is like the ruh, meaning that we don't delve into its essence. We understand the basic function, but we don't delve into its essence. وَلَكِنْ قَرَّرُوا فِيهِ خِلَافًا فَانْظُرًا مَا فَسَّرُوا. However, they, the scholars, have affirmed that there is a difference of opinion with respect to it. So look as to what they have described. So there's many different discussions as to the ulama have a lot of discussion as to the aql, just like with the ruh, and so he's saying if you want more information, then you'd have to look to what the different ulama say about it, because the aql, it's what connects with the ma'qulat, the intelligibles, but it also has to do with restraining oneself from vices. And so is it the faculty that can simply know? Is it the faculty that distinguishes between good and evil? Is it the faculty that what is its purpose? Is it in kalam they said that aql is the knowledge of the wujub al-wajibat wa jawaz al-jaizat wa istihalat al-mustahilat. For example, Imam Jawaini said that the aql is that which that knows the necessity of that which is logically necessary. It knows the possibility of that which is logically possible, and it knows the impossibility of that which is logically impossible. So logic, aql, the intellect, these are things there's a lot of discussion on. Alhamdulillah. 96. So now we're going into eschatology proper, right? what happens, the ma'ad, when the return. The ma'ad is one of the names of the afterlife, is the return. So, because we go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alastu bi rabbikum. We started in the divine presence and we go back to meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the return. And eschatology is basically, it's where the hukm adi breaks down. Okay, the hukm adi breaks down. So this world, we live in a matrix, no pun intended. We live in a matrix of ahkam adiyah, of rulings based off of patterns. Okay, normative rulings that are based off of patterns that we can test empirically. Every time I put the book down, it rests on the table. It doesn't float up. Every time I drink something, my thirst gets quenched. Now, in our aqidah, we believe that there is no ta'thir, there is no effecting an effect, there's no causation of effect except by the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except by divine power. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no power. La hawla, it's la nafil al-jins. There is no quwwah whatsoever. There is no hawl whatsoever. There's no ability. And hawl has to do with tahweel, to change. So there's no ability to make one thing change into another, to movement, stillness. There's no ability, there's no power, there's no potency, there's no agency. Illa billah, except by Allah. Except by Allah, the only one that has qudra. Now, so when we perceive the effects in this world, we are perceiving the creation of Allah. When we're perceiving the effects in this world, we're perceiving the direct in-time creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's His fiat. But He has done so, normally He does so through the prism of ahkam adiyah. He normally does so through the prism, what we perceive, this matrix of normative rulings, the way things normally function in the world. And He does that for a wisdom, because if He, subhanahu wa ta'ala, quenched my thirst at random, and sometimes when I drank, my thirst would get quenched, but sometimes when I wrote with a pen, my thirst would get quenched, but sometimes when I put my kufi on, my thirst would get quenched. If it were all mixed up in the world and not consistent in certain things, we wouldn't be able to function. So out of the mercy and wisdom of Allah, He has a consistency, a sunnah, or an ada, the way He does things, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's still doing it. The qudra is still His. The power, the effect that's being born in the world. Every effect is born. It's a newborn that comes into the world. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do that. Only Allah ta'ala creates. We believe causation is creation. But the prism, the surface of it, is a surface of normative, repetitive patterns that we can empirically test and benefit by. So the outward of it is hikmah, divine wisdom. But the inward of it is qudra. The reality of it is divine power. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we are seeing is a manifestation of His hikmah. And what we are benefiting from, what actually occurs, is a manifestation of His qudra. And so He has veiled His qudra with His hikmah. He has veiled His qudra with His hikmah. And so the people that are close to Him, they perceive it from Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they perceive that the only reason that it is occurring through these patterns is out of divine wisdom. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is al-zahir and al-batin. He is the one that's outwardly manifest with His hikmah, but inwardly hidden with His qudra, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that the world is still His fiat. Hada khalqullah. This is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is important because the sabab can become an idol. The sabab, the means that we use in the world, it can be a false deity when people ascribe qudra to it. When people ascribe actual agency to the sabab. And so this can, if it gets so heightened, then a person will deny miracles. Because how can you say that your prophet split the moon? Well, I've never seen how could the moon just split? It's a big thing in the sky. How could it just split? We know now it's made of rock or whatever. How could Moses, alayhi salam, how could he strike his staff and the ocean split? We never seen water go up. And so the sabab, the hukm adi, the normative ruling and the means by which Allah does things can veil the person and become the idol that they believe. No, the water has qudra. Gravity has qudra. The moon's molecules that are bound have qudra. And those are unbreakable. Those are the way things are. And so then the first stage of kufr would be to deny miracles. The second stage of kufr would be to deny the ma'ad, when every hukm adi breaks apart. Bodies are resurrected. Souls are brought back from the graves. And, that the whole world is completely changed. And now you have everyone brought back in front of, now they have to, and then their lives are brought back. Their lives are brought back. Yani it's not just the person, but his whole life is brought back. Time is brought back. And everything is replayed from birth to death. Everything is replayed for that person. And every single person. All billions and billions and trillions of humans from beginning to end. And all at once. Everyone has a hisab with Allah. One-on-one, yet all at once. All the ahkam adiyah are broken. If a person is worshipping the hukm adi, if the sabab becomes their idol, not worshipping by sajda, but worshipping by ascribing real qudra to it. No, the sabab is so powerful. Then how can they believe in that? It's hard to believe in. And the Quraysh, they looked at the decayed bones. They said, you're going to tell me those decayed bones are going to come back to life? Allah's going to bring those decayed bones back to life. Look at them, they're decaying. هذا خلق الله. Allah is causing the decaying now. The same one that created it and the same one that's causing the decay will bring it back together. So if we appreciate that the what's happening in the world is by His qudra and the form of it is His hikmah, then it's still His domain. And so just like this world, He can create another world that's very different, where it has its own ahkam adiyah. So this is really important. So the ma'ad is the realm where the hukm adi is severed, and are what we perceive as the laws of physics, etc., are turned upside down. Naam. So what happens? سؤالنا ثم عذاب القبر نعيمه واجب كبعث الحشر. First of all, we'll be asked, and then ثم there will be a state in the grave, either adhab or na'im, either punishment or bliss. Wajib, it is incumbent to believe this. كبعث الحشر, like resurrection itself. Okay, so we believe in the questioning of the grave. We believe in the state of the grave, where either a window to paradise or a window to the hellfire will be opened, and the person will experience that. If it's a window to hellfire, they will dread the coming of Judgment Day. If it's a window to paradise, they can't wait till the coming of Judgment Day. And so this is wajib. This is something that we necessarily believe in. '97. وَقُلْ يَعْدُ الْجِسْمُ بِالتَّحْقِيقِ عَنْ عَدَمٍ وَقِيلَ أَنْ تَفْرِيقِ. And say and assert that the body will be brought back together. بِالتَّحْقِيق, literally. Look what he says. بِالتَّحْقِيق. It's not a figurative thing. It's not just the soul. The physical body, these bodies that we are inhabiting right now, they will be brought back together. بِالتَّحْقِيق. Now, there is a difference of opinion. What is it brought back from? The majority opinion is that it's brought back from non-existence. Allah Ta'ala will actually, for those whose bodies decompose. Okay, so other than prophets ﷺ and martyrs and there's many categories of people that, the ulama al-amilun, scholars that act on their knowledge, the people that memorize the Quran and recite it thoroughly and live by it, and different categories of people that their bodies are not decomposed. For those that are, it's decomposed all the way into Adam, That's the majority opinion. And so from Adam, from non-existence, Allah will bring the same body back, the exact same body, not a replica, but the exact same body. The minority opinion was an tafriq, that it disintegrates into its smallest components, but it's still in existence. Okay, that the body decomposes into its smallest components, but that it's still in existence. And this is the Ashari atomic theory, that everything in the cosmos is made up of indivisible atoms. What was called atoms, although today perhaps it could be called a quark or a string or whatever particle that they discover is the smallest indivisible particle. This is something that the Asharis affirmed, and it's called the Jawhar al-Fard, the indivisible particle. So the tafriq would be that the body decomposes into those particles with no two particles remaining attached. Every particle is singular. And then Allah Ta'ala brings it back together. And so He says in line 98, mahdain, absolute, i.e. absolute adam or absolute tafriq, either absolute non-existence or absolute disintegration. لكن ذا الخلاف خص بالأنبياء ومن عليهم نص. However, this difference of opinion between the body going into pure adam, non-existence, or pure tafriq, complete disintegration, the exception to this is those whose bodies will not disintegrate, which we mentioned their categories. So prophets and messengers, alayhimu salam jami'an, martyrs, they mention the mu'adhdhinin ihtisaban, those that give adhan while seeking the reward of it, that their bodies remain intact. Al-ulama al-amilin, scholars that act on their knowledge. And then حملة القرآن الملازمين لتلاوته العاملين بما فيه المعظمين له بضبط لسانهم وطهارتهم وآدابهم إلى غير ذلك. And the preservers of the Quran who consistently recite it, who act according to it, and who venerate the Quran by correct pronunciation and by purification and by all of the etiquette of the Quran. With all those conditions, those people also, inshallah, that their bodies are, that they remain intact in the graves. And we know from the Quran itself that the shuhada are alive in their graves, and a fortiori prophets and messengers, they are alive in their graves. And we know this also from the Isra wal Mi'raj, that in the hadith says the Prophet ﷺ, when he passed by Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, he was making sajda, and then they all met, etc., etc. So this is something we believe. And then 99, وَفِي إِعَادَةِ الْعَرَضِ قَوْلَانِ وَرُجِّحَتْ إِعَادَةُ الْأَعْيَانِ. So in terms of the accidents of a person, so the line 97 was dealing with the substance of a person, the physical particles that make up the body. What about the accidents? So the size, the shape, the qualities, the traits of the person, as well as the actions, the good deeds and bad deeds of the person. That وَفِي إِعَادَةِ الْعَرَضِ, with respect to the restoration or the bringing back of accidents, qawlan, there are two opinions. Okay, there are two opinions. The first one, which is the majority opinion and the opinion of Imam Ashari himself, is that they are also brought back, just like the body. The same accidents that were in this world are brought back in the next world. So it's not similar accidents, the exact same ones, the exact same traits and qualities and sizes and actions. And the way the actions manifest in that realm are in suwar. They have images. And so the good deeds are brought as beautiful images, and the bad deeds are brought as hideous, vile-looking images. And so they mention that it's not at one moment, because in this world we're experiencing these accidents in time over our lifetimes, one after another. So that same sequence, it's brought back with that same sequence. Okay, so it's replayed. But they say كَلَّمْحِ الْبَصَرِ. The entire lifetime is replayed at once, in a moment. So in a moment, when the body is brought back, the entire lifetime is, those accidents are brought back in sequence, but all occurring in one moment. وَرَبُّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. And your Lord is able to do all things. And there's no logical contradiction entailed, so believe it. The second opinion, which is a minority opinion, is that not the exact same accidents are brought back, but rather similar accidents. So it's not the exact same, but one's just like them. And this was a minority opinion, and the dominant one, he expresses by the end of the line, وَرُجِّحَتْ إِعَادَةُ الْأَعْيَانِ. The a'yan is the plural of ayn, which is this exact same thing. The ayn is aynuhu, yani, the very same one. So rujjihat, what's deemed stronger, i'adatul a'yan, is the bringing back of the exact same accidents. وفي الزمن, line 100, وفي الزمن قولان. What about time? The bringing back of time, also something we believe in the akhirah. So there's again two opinions as to that. The stronger one is that all of the moments that the body went through in this world are brought back in the next world, such that those moments will testify either for the person or against the person with respect to his good and bad deeds. So the moments actually bear witness with respect to the person's behavior and ethics and faith. The minority opinion, the second one, was that that time could not be brought back because of the sequence of time. That in this world there is a past, present, and future. So they said, how could it be brought back? But the response of the dominant opinion was that it's not brought back all in one moment, not all at once, but rather in the sequence, in the same sequence as the person experienced time in this world. However, it occurs in a moment. So in a moment, all those moments in their order are brought back. And I think it's interesting that we live in a time where we can actually do this on our own. So this is being recorded right now, and someone can watch it later, and the same moments are brought back in their sequence. And you can even make it go fast forward, and so the same moments are played out in a few moments. And so if we can do it, Allah can do it. يعني. وَمَا ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ بِعَزِيزٍ. These are ayat Allah is showing us. Yani. وَالْحِسَابُ حَقٌّ وَمَا فِي حَقٍّ ارْتِيَابُ. And the reckoning, the taking to account, is a reality. It's real and it's literal. And there is no doubt. وَمَا فِي حَقٍّ ارْتِيَاب. There's no irtiyab, there's no doubt with respect to truth. So this is, again, Sayyidina Umar, he said, حَاسِبُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا. Take yourselves to task, take yourselves to account before you are taken to account. And this is the idea of muhasaba or muraqaba. Muraqaba is keeping an eye on yourself, seeing how you're behaving. And muhasaba is actually to do an accounting of it, to actually take out a pen and paper and write it down. And this is something that it's inshallah a sign that a person is genuine with Allah, that they want to show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they're serious in pursuing taqwa. So the hisab, Allah will take every individual and one-on-one do hisab, and it's all at once. So every single individual will do it one-on-one with Allah, but Allah will do it with everyone at once, and it's not hard for Allah to do that. There are exceptions to the hisab, and so the hadith says that there will be 70,000 of this ummah that enter paradise without hisab. So they have no accounting. And their most salient trait, according to the hadith, is tawakkul, is reliance, complete reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the people of tawakkul of this ummah are those that Allah exempts them from any hisab. And our teachers mentioned that Tawakkul is really the fruit at the end of one's journey to Allah. It is the culmination of all of spirituality. And it's the heart of the seerah, the heart of the person of the Prophet ﷺ is tawakkul. And that's the realization of la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. When the person actually experiences the world as the outward of it is Allah's wisdom and the inward of it is Allah's power, then they'll fully rely on Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. When these meanings are realized to their fullest, then the person is in complete reliance of his Lord. And this is the sunnah, this is the heart of the sunnah, that in one of the early scriptures that described the last Prophet ﷺ, that Allah Ta'ala said in there, Sammaytuka al-mutawakkil, I have named you the mutawakkil. I have named you the one that fully relies on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is also the station of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, that when he was a teenager and flung from the catapult into the air towards the fire, Jibreel alayhi salam comes and asks, can I do something for you? And he says, from you, no. Hasbi Allah. Hasbi Allah. Allah is sufficient. So Jibreel alayhi salam is a sabab for Ibrahim alayhi salam. From the point of view of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam is a sabab. And the sabab has no power. But rather, it's Allah's power. And what's being manifested is Allah's wisdom. And so he says, Hasbi Allah. Allah, the one that is creating everything, is sufficient for me. And then what happened to the fire? Bardan wa salaman, cool and peaceful. So these people, there's 70,000 of them in our ummah. They don't have to go through hisab. There's a hadith that says that the Prophet ﷺ requested more. And so Allah Ta'ala said, for each 1,000 of the 70,000 shall be 70,000 more. For each 1,000 of the 70,000 shall be 70,000 more. You can do the math. What, 70 times 70,000? But some of our ulama mentioned that these numbers are just a way of saying takthir, the number 70. A lot of times the Arabs would just use it for a whole bunch. And it's actually, it's indicated in the hadith, because the hadith says at the end, Allah added 3 more scoops. Allah added 3 more scoops, i.e. 3 more groups that Allah chooses and just throws in there, in addition to this number. So it's just a whole bunch of people that are included in the group of no hisab. Now, those original 70,000 are the masters of tawakkul. And it's interesting that for each thousand there are 70,000 more, because one of the things that we learn from the sunnah is that through love of the awliya, we can join their ranks. Through love of the awliya, we can join their ranks. And that when a man came to the Prophet ﷺ and complained, he says that I love a people, but I can't keep up with them. I love certain people, but I can't keep up with them. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-mar'u ma'aman ahab. A person will be with the ones he loves. A person will be with the ones he loves. Meaning that I certainly can't be like so-and-so, who is tremendous in their rank with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the least I can do is love and venerate them. And the Prophet ﷺ is indicating that through our love and veneration of them, we will be joined with them. Al-mar'u ma'a. Ma'a is to be with. The same place, same rank. And so 70,000 are the imams of tawakkul, but there's a whole lot more that join through their, inshallah, their love of them. Allah joins them in their rank and the fruits of their devotion. فالسيئات عنده بالمثل والحسنات ضُعِفت بالفضل. Bad deeds with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are recompensed by equivalence. Bad deeds عنده with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are recompensed by equivalence. Do something wrong, there is an equivalent amount of punishment that Allah could choose to punish with, or He could choose to forgive, if aside from shirk. وَالْحَسَنَاتُ ضُعِفَتْ بِالْفَضْلِ. But good deeds are multiplied out of His bounty. Good deeds are multiplied out of His grace, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Naam. So that up to 10 times, the minimal multiplication is 10 times, but up to 70, up to 700, إِلَى أَضَافٍ كَثِيرًا, 700 times 700 times 700 times 700, depending on the intention of the person and Allah's selection of them. وَبِاجْتِنَابٍ لِلْكَبَائِرِ تُغْفَرُ صَغَائِرٌ وَجَلْبُدُ يُكَفِّرُ. By avoiding the major mortal sins, the enormities, kaba'ir, tughfaru saghair, the minor sins are overlooked and forgiven. Okay, so by merely avoiding major sins, a person is forgiven for their slips and mistakes. And Allah Ta'ala says, Surah An-Nisa, verse 31, إِن تَجْتَنِبُوا كَبَائِرَ مَا تُنْهَوْنَ عَنْهُ نُكَفِّرْ عَنْكُمْ سَيِّئَاتِكُمْ وَنُدْخِلُكُمْ مُدْخَلًا كَرِيمًا. If you avoid the enormities of what you have been prohibited, we shall nukaffir, we shall expiate and erase from you all your bad deeds, i.e. the minor sins. And we shall enter you all in a generous and noble entrance. So there's many things that can wipe out or erase the minor sins, such as wudu. That's why he says wajal wudu yukaffiru. Wudu has come in the narration as yukaffiru. It expiates, it washes away sins, minor sins. And the prayer, the salat, the Jumu'ah, the Ramadan, and of course Hajj. So these are all mukaffirat. There are 7 mubiqat. There are 7 of the most heinous and destructive of the mortal sins, of the kaba'ir. The first is ashirk billah, to associate a partner with Allah, and this is the major shirk, the shirk that is kufr. And that's the only sin that is unforgivable if a person dies with it, assuming they had received the message. And the second major destructive sin is sihr, is sorcery. The third one, Aql and Nafs بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ, is unsanctioned killing or murder. The fourth, Aql mal al-yatim, is consuming the wealth of an orphan. The fifth, Aql riba, is engaging in usury. The next one, وَتَوَلِّي يَوْمَ الزَّحْفِ, is to flee from the battlefield. And lastly, for a soldier in the army. And lastly, وَقَذْفُ الْمُحْصَنَاتِ الْغَافِلَاتِ, is to falsely accuse a woman, of indecency or fornication. Yani. But in general, there's a lot of discussion as to what exactly is a major sin versus a minor sin. And one of the more dominant opinions is that a major sin is that which there is a text in the Quran or Hadith that explicitly mentions a punishment. Okay, so if a sin is mentioned in the Quran or Hadith that explicitly mentions a punishment, it's considered a major sin, while less than that would be a minor sin. But there's a lot of discussion on that, and there are other opinions as well. وَالْيَوْمُ الْآخِرِ ثُمَّ هَوْلُ الْمَوْقِفِ حَقٌّ فَخَفِّفْ يَا رَحِيمُ وَاسْعِفِ. And the last day, يَوْمُ الْآخِرِ, that's a reality that we believe in. ثُمَّ, on top of that, هَوْلُ الْمَوْقِفِ. So the mawqif is the standing before Allah, the standing place, or the actual standing before Allah. And the hawl is the terror. So the terror of the standing place. And so this is the the hadith says that when the different prophets are approached for shafa'ah, and they say nafsi nafsi alayhim salam jami'an, that they say this is a day that our Lord has never been as angry, and He shall never be as angry again. So it is the greatest manifestation of Allah's ghadab, and the greatest manifestation of His Jalal. And so it is a day of terror. It is a day of terror. For those of taqwa, they are not in a state of terror on this day. So the people of Iman and Taqwa, the people of Walaya, they are in a good state on this day. So they're preserved from the terror. And the better one is, the more Walaya a person can approximate, the higher one can ascend in Iman and Taqwa, then the less distressing this day is. No. And so he makes a dua at the end, Imam Laqani, فَخَفِّفْ يَا رَحِيمُ وَاسْعِفِي. So lighten, O merciful Lord, and was'ifi, help, aid us on that day. وَوَاجِبٌ أَخْذُ الْعِبَادِ السُّحَفَ كَمَا مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ نَسًّا عُرِفًا. And it's an incumbent belief, something we affirm literally, that the servants will take their suhuf, their books, the books of their deeds, as explicitly mentioned in the Quran. كَمَا مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ نَسًّا عُرِفًا, as is explicitly mentioned in the Quran. So the good people will take the book in the right hand, the bad in the left hand or behind their backs, according to the Quran. لا يغادر صغيرة ولا كبيرة. It does not leave out a minor or a major sin. It leaves out nothing. ومثل هذا الوزن والميزان فتوزن الكتب أو الأعيان. And like this, i.e. a reality that we have to believe in, is al-wazn wal-mizan, the actual scale, which is a literal scale on that day, as well as the mizan, the weighing on that scale. So both the physical scale and the weighing that occurs is a literal reality that we affirm. فَتُوزَنُ الْكُتُبُ أَوْ الْأَعْيَانِ. There's a difference of opinion. What exactly is weighed? Is it the kutub? Is it the scrolls that have the deeds written on them? Or is it the a'yan? Is it the deeds themselves? Is it the deeds themselves? Aynul amal, the act itself. And there's a hadith to indicate the scrolls, and Allahu Alam, that they both have their evidence. But if it's the a'yan, it's based off of what we said earlier, that the deeds will take on images. They will actually, the metaphysical of this world will transform into the physical in the next world. And so good deeds will transform into beautiful physical bodies, and bad deeds transform into hideous physical bodies. So what is perceived metaphysically, its surah will be seen physically with a surah. There's a beautiful hadith, the hadith of the bitaqa, the card, and that it's narrated in the Sahih of Ibn Hibban and the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَسْتَخْلِصُ رَجُلًا مِنْ أُمَّتِي عَلَى رُؤُوسِ الْخَلَائِقِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Verily Allah will specifically choose, He will select a man of my ummah in front of all creatures on the Day of Judgment. فَيُنْشُرْ عَلَيْهِ تِسْعَةً وَتِسْعِينَ سِجِلًّا. And Allah will open up for him 99 scrolls. كُلُّ سِجِلٍ مِنْهَا مَدُّ الْبَصَرِ. Each of which reaches out as far as the eye can see. ثُمَّ يَقُولُ. And Allah will say, أَتُنْكِرُ مِنْ هَذَا شَيْئًا. Do you deny a single thing from this? أَظَلَمَكَ كَتَبَتِي الْحَافِظُونَ. Did my angelic scribes wrong you in any way? فَيَقُولُ لَا يَا رَبِّ. The man will say, no, my Lord. فَيَقُولُ أَلَكَ عُذْرٌ. Allah will say, do you have an excuse? فَيَقُولُ لَا يَا رَبِّ. The man will say, no, my Lord. فَيَقُولُ أَلَكَ حَسَنَةٌ. Allah will say, do you have a single good deed? فَيَقُولُ لَا يَا رَبِّ. No, my Lord. فَيَقُولُ بَلَى. Allah will say, no, you do have a good deed. إِنَّ لَكَ عِنْدَنَا لَحَسَنَةً. You have a single good deed with us. وَإِنَّهُ لَا ظُلْمَ عَلَيْكَ. And there is no wronging of you today. فَتَخْرُجُ لَهُ بِطَاقَةٌ كالأنملة فيها كالأنملة. And there will emerge for this man a card, a bitaqa, كالأنملة, the size of the top of your finger. فيها, written on this card, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. I testify that there is no God but Allah, and I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of God. فيقول يا رب ما هذه البطاقة مع هذه السجلات. The man will say, my Lord, what value does this little card have compared to all these scrolls? فيقال, it will be said to him, إنك لا تظلم, you shall not be wrong today. فتوضع السجلات في كفة. So all of the scrolls will be placed on one side of the scale. وَالْبِطَاقَةُ فِي كَفَّةٍ, and the little card on the other side of the scale. فَطَاشَتْ السِّجِلَّاتِ, and as soon as the little card hits the scale, all the 99 scrolls will fly up in the air. وَثَقُلَتْ الْبِطَاقَةِ, but that lone card will outweigh it heavily, remain there heavily. وَلَا يُثْقَلْ مَعْ اسْمِ اللَّهِ شَيْءٍ, because nothing is heavy compared to the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. MashaAllah. Just the nur of Tawheed. The nur of Tawheed, the nur of believing in Allah and believing in the Prophet ﷺ. And we can't fathom, the nur of it. And the Prophet promised us ﷺ, he said, Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhal jannah. Whoever says la ilaha illallah will eventually go to paradise. It's a promise of the Sadiq Masduq, the one that never lied, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sidi Abu Hassan al-Shadili, he said that if Allah were to show you the nur of the fasiq mu'min, if Allah were to show you the nur of the fasiq mu'min, the believer who commits all sorts of sins, he said it would fill up between the heavens and earth. The light of the believer, despite being so bad, committing all these sins, would fill up between the heavens and earth because of this little bitaqa, the nur of it. And Sidi Abu Hassan then said, so what do you think about the pious believer? What do you think about the awliya? If that's the nur of the... Al-mar'u ma man ahab, just love them, inshallah, be with them. كذا الصراط فالعباد مختلف مرورهم فسالم ومنتلف. Likewise, a reality that we affirm is the bridge, the traverse over hellfire, a literal traverse that is on top of the hell. فالعباد مختلف مرورهم فسالم ومنتلف. So human beings will be disparate in the way they cross it. There will be difference in the way people are able to cross it. فَسَالِمٌ, some will be safe, وَمُنْتَلِف, others will perish, others will fall. And the hadith mentions that it is thinner than a hair and sharper than a sword, right? It's thinner than a hair and sharper than a sword. Most ulama took that literally, and that's the dominant position you'll hear. But there were some eminent imams who said it is that description is figurative. So the bridge is real, but it's larger than that, but the mashaqqa, the difficulty of crossing it is so much, it's as if it's thinner than a hair and sharper than a sword. This is the opinion of Al-Izz ibn Abd salam and Imam Qarafi and Imam Zarkashi. So there's some big usuli masters who understood the description to be figurative, but the bridge itself, of course, is a literal bridge. And the crossing over it is based off of, again, one's walaya, iman and taqwa. So the strength of one's iman and taqwa in this life will translate into a quick crossing in the next life. So the people that are closest to Allah, it's like the flash of light or blink of an eye. And the people that are next, it's like fast steeds. And then people that are next, it's like running fast. And people that are next, it's like walking. And for people, it'll be crawling, and for people it'll just be barely inching along like an ant until they finally make it, and others they will fall, wal'iyadu billah. And the Prophet ﷺ, he will be there saying, Allahumma sallim sallim. Every Prophet will be saying, Allahumma sallim sallim for their ummah. Oh Allah, let them make it. Oh Allah, let them make it. And so, even the Prophets and Siddiqun, they have to cross it. Okay, alayhi salam, they actually have to cross it, but they, of course, are the quickest in crossing it. No. والعرش والكرسي ثم القلم والكاتبون اللوح كل حكم. And more realities that we affirm literally is the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the kursi, the footstool of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, of course, we talked about that there's no anthropomorphism implied by this. The throne is literal, the kursi is literal, but Allah ta'ala does not sit on it because He is outside of time and place. But He created a throne that encompasses the entire cosmos and all the seven heavens. So, wal-arshu wal-kursiyu, and then thumma al-qalamu, and the pen is literal, wal-katibuna, and the scribes, and al-lawh, the tablet itself. These are literal, physical creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Kullu hikamu, all of them were made for wisdom. All of them entail wisdom. La lihtiyajin, not because Allah needed them. Allah did not need to create the pen and tablet to record what He willed. No, He did it for a wisdom. وَبِهَا الْإِيمَانُ يَجِبْ عَلَيْكَ أَيُّهَا الْإِنسَانُ. And, O person, O human, it is incumbent upon you to believe in all of these. وَالنَّارُ حَقٌّ. And the fire is real. It is a literal reality. أُوجِدَتْ كَالْجَنَّةِ. That was created like paradise, another literal reality. And these exist now. Paradise and fire existed before we were created, before we were brought in this realm. So that's part of our aqidah, that they exist, they're literal. فَلَا تَمِلْ لِجَاحِدٍ ذِي جِنَّةٍ. So do not incline towards a denier, someone that denies, someone that can't accept these eschatological realities. لَا تَمِلْ, don't even incline towards them. Because how does he describe such a person? ذِي جِنَّةٍ, he's a majnoon. He has no aql. He has no aql. Dara khuludin, two abodes of eternity. This is also part of our aqidah. Jannah and Nar are eternal realms. They're not temporary. And their inhabitants shall be there for eternity. The people of paradise are in paradise for eternity, and the people of the fire are in the fire for eternity. Some people in the fire will be taken out, but those that rejected the message will stay there for eternity. And Imam Ghazali says that one of the wisdoms of this is because everyone is recompensed based off of their intention. And the intention was a perpetual intention. And the intention of the believer was to keep on believing. That every day Allah would create for them, they would keep on believing that next day, that subsequent day, and ad infinitum. And the intention of the disbeliever, the rejecter, was to be a disbeliever and rejecter for every day that God that they don't believe in gives them. So the intention was perpetual, and so therefore the recompense is perpetual. And you read some of their books and you can see their perpetual intentions of rejection. May Allah guide them. It's not far for Allah, it's not hard for Allah to guide them. Dara khuludin, two abodes of eternity. Lis-sa'idi wa-shaqi, for the one who is destined to be felicitous and the one who is destined to be damned. Sa'id and Shaqi. Mu'adhabun muna'amun mahma baqi. The Shaqi shall be tormented and the Sa'id shall be rewarded with pleasure and bliss, mahma baqi, as long as he remains, as long as they last, which is into eternity. We can also appreciate something, that this is really arguably the most important response to the problem of evil and theodicy, is that evil in this world, we were discussing in a theology class that evil in this world, as well as good, it is interwoven and interpenetrative and interwoven and intermixed and intermingled. And as with the same with pleasure and pain and good times and bad times. And so a person can go through the course of a day and experience all sorts of good and all sorts of bad and all sorts of pleasure and all sorts of pain, and they're all mixed up and they seem random sometimes. This just happens out of the blue, and of course we believe that it was all decreed. So in this world, it's a world of intermingling. It's a world where the manifestations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the implications of His names and attributes, that the good times are the implications of Ar-Rahman and Al-Latif and Ar-Ra'uf and Al-Wahhab, etc. And the bad times are implications of Shadid al-Iqab and Sari al-Hisab and Al-Muntaqim. So these are all mixed up, but there will come a time or a realm of existence where they are once and forever segregated. And there is actually an abode of nothing but the tajalli of Allah's beauty. And there is an abode of nothing but the tajalli of Allah's ghadab, Allah's majesty and justice. Pure absolute gift and pure absolute justice and retribution. And they're once and forever segregated, and they are eternal. And so that's the context of this world where it's all mixed up. That's what has to be kept in mind. That to be patient with the painful, to be patient with the evil, to be content with Allah's decree when we deal with the difficulties of this world is a window to that eternal Jamal. The problem of evil is a problem if it ends with that evil. But if it's a vista to eternal bliss, it's not a problem. And the same thing with the temptations that a person falls into, which is really the problem of evil. If you want to rephrase the whole argument, the problem of evil is when we succumb to our egos, that when those windows are windows to eternal pain. Those are windows, temporary temptations that are windows to eternal pain. And so keeping that context, and if we really reflect on the Quran, the heart, one of the most powerful things about the Quran is it's just constantly reminding us of eternal context. If you want the one major theme throughout the whole book, everything is put in that backdrop. Everything is seen through that lens. The one that develops a Quranic consciousness, the lens of the Quran, is the one that perceives eternal consequence. The one that perceives the eternal consequences of their actions. Those are the people, they are reflecting the Quran and they are seeing with the lens of the Quran. And this is the way that the awliya experience the world, is that when they see something haram, they see the fire there. They see it as flames. And when they see something that Allah has mandated, they see paradise in that. Even if it's difficult, they see paradise in that. And may Allah give us tawfiq to be realizing these meanings. May Allah forgive us our sins and make us amongst those that have no hisab and that are in the realm of eternal bliss, with those closest to Allah, gazing upon His countenance subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad. If there's any questions, inshallah, we'll endeavor. No. So,
There was the 7 major sins you mentioned earlier, and you also, I think the last class talked about it. If someone is openly sinning, they kind of lower the veil. So when you said accusing women, do you mean all women in general, or like most, and not like women that guard their, that?
Any woman.
So even if she's openly, or
if there's not 4 witnesses, it's an accusation.
So all women in general.
Yeah, any woman. Yeah, it's a sin, major crime to accuse a woman of. No.
2 questions. First, when you're talking about the Arsh and the Kursi, I don't understand how, like, we affirm the physical realities of those things, but when Allah talks about them in the Quran, we obviously don't put that physical modality and we don't subject Him to that. But how do you understand His metaphysical relationship to those physical things? When, like, it's always.
How do we understand Allah's relationship with the Arsh and the Kursi? Is that He creates them. He created them. He brought them from non-existence to existence. So, that we talked about that Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa, that the All-Merciful has assumed the throne, that there's the approach of tafweed, the early Muslims, was to just consign it to Allah and not get into it, while denying the outward literal. So ta'wil ijmali, deny the outward literal but consign the reality to Allah. But the ta'wil tafsili, the detailed ta'wil of the later scholars was to do ta'wil that, okay, it's not a literal sitting or being placed on the throne, but istawa ala al-arsh, that He has revealed His authority over His dominion and authority over the throne. He has revealed His authority and affirmed His authority over the throne. And if the throne physically encompasses the entire cosmos, then by extension His authority permeates the entire cosmos. But He described Himself subhanahu wa ta'ala in that context as Ar-Rahman. That while there's istiwa, which is affirming His qahr, His absolute authority and dominion, so the action implies jalal, istawa ala al-arsh. But the attribute of the one who is doing the action is Ar-Rahman, because wasiyat rahmati kulla shay, my mercy has encompassed everything in the cosmos. And so that is really a hopeful ayah, that as much as we affirm Allah's dominion over us, we also know that the one that has dominion over us is the one whose mercy is unending. The one whose mercy is unending. And so just as the entire cosmos winks into non-existence when compared to the Arsh, the entire Arsh winks into non-existence when compared to Allah's mercy.
In regards to the 2 different things about the resurrection, the majority thing you said was it's going to be completely brought back together from nothing, from Adam. I was wondering how the Ash'aris deal with the hadith. I don't know the definition of the hadith. I've heard of it. That the rain that comes, that falls into the graves, and then it touches that one little bit of the son of Adam still there, and then from that, everything.
Yeah. So the ajb al-dhanab is still there. The ajb al-dhanab, the coccyx, the end of the coccyx, or the coccyx bone, remains in the grave. But the rest of the person, what happens to him before he's resurrected? The majority said it actually goes in those parts of his body go into non-existence. No.
So is it from that everything else brought back up and it's recreated?
Recreated from that. That's the starting point. But they're not contradictory. Just like in this world, when we see effect of cause, we don't believe that the cause causes it, but Allah creates it just occasioned with it. So the restoration of the body is occasioned with that coccyx bone. Wallahu alam. No.
So when you're supposed to hit the action and not the person itself, what are you seeing? What are you seeing that person as? There's no action spring from that person.
We hate the action, not the person himself. If we see someone else doing something wrong, we see the person as someone that the adab is to see them as if they're not in their senses at the time. The adab is to see them as they're kind of majnoon, so they can't help it. That's the adab. So, because Allah is the one that judges, we don't judge. إِنَّمَا نَحْكُمْ بِالظَّوَاهِرِ. We can only judge what's done, what is apparent to us. So we hate actions that are wrong. But the person himself, maybe they do have a disease. Maybe they do have a tumor in their brain and they can't help it. And seriously, now today we find out that people can act in all sorts of strange ways. Maybe someone slips some drug into their drinks and it's causing them to have hallucinations. And then that's kind of how the awliya see bad people, you know. And so what did the Prophet say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at Uhud? Allahumma ighfir li qawmi fa innahum la ya'lamun. Oh Allah, forgive my people. Why? They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. The aql is not sound. They don't know. It's a high level. May Allah give us that. Yeah, inshallah. Any other questions?
I have a clarification of the question. When you talked about prophets and the Shuhada being alive, it's their bodies are dead but their souls are alive. Am I correct?
Okay, so it's a new realm of existence, the barzakh, right? So that everyone's soul is alive in that realm. But their bodies are also intact in our realm. Their bodies are also intact. So if the grave was opened, we would see the body fresh. Yeah, we'd see the body fresh. Tari, the word is tari. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah in Kitab al-Ruh says that he says, Ajsam al-Anbiya, the jism of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, hayyun tari fi qabrihi. He says it's alive and fresh in his grave, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they're not in our realm, like the way people, but they're, it's a long topic, but I'll just leave it at that.
Another question about trust. Yeah, I find that trust takes on different forms in different situations. How does one navigate one's way to that path of trust, no matter what form it is?
The ulama mentioned that trust is the duty of the heart, while the limbs take all the means. And so one is diligent in doing anything and everything they can to deal with the situation with their limbs, with their actions. They take every action, they take every means as diligent and as meticulously as possible. And this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that he was promised safety, but he leaves for the hijrah in the middle of the night, and he has Sayyidina Ali stay in his bed, and instead of going straight north to Yathrib, he goes south 5 miles, and he takes the coastal route instead of the normal route. And sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you look at walking tippy-toed because to not leave tracks, and then Sayyidina Abu Bakr carrying him up the mountain, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So all of the asbab were being taken, but when the moment was at its most tense and Sayyidina Abu Bakr is concerned about the welfare of the Prophet ﷺ, what does he say as a reflection of where his heart was the whole time? Ya Abu Bakr, ma dhanuka bithnain, Allahu thalithuhuma. Oh Abu Bakr, what do you think about two? That Allah is their third. So his heart the whole time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was where? In complete tawakkul. Actually, we could say tawakkul was in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tawakkul was honored to be in the heart of the Prophet. But this is the sunnah. So we do everything we can to deal with our situations, but our heart, we should be with Allah, and part of it is husn al-dhan. One could say that tawakkul / husn al-dhan, that having a good opinion of Allah and being confident in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that this is, they say that there's three traits of the awliya, that thalathatun min alamat al-awliya, 3 signs of the awliya: ar-ruju' ila Allahi fi kulli shay, to return to Allah in everything; wal-faqru ila Allahi fi kulli shay, to need Allah in everything; wa-thiqatu billahi fi kulli shay, and to be confident in Allah in every single thing. So whatever the situation is, while we take the means, our heart turns to Allah, expresses need to Allah, and is confident that Allah will take care of it. And one of them said, "Man hassana dhannahu billah, fataha Allahu alayhi bab al-rahmah." Whoever has a good opinion of Allah, Allah will open the floodgates of His mercy. Allah will open the floodgates of His mercy. So just expecting the good, expecting a good outcome, being optimistic in our Lord, not in our means, because we know the means have no power, but being optimistic in the Creator of the means and the one who is in charge. Inshallah, we'll see beautiful things. Inshallah. Alhamdulillah.
Just a question related to trust is that sometimes, like when you're put in situations, you tend to see like signs in those situations. So should you read into those signs? Should you ignore those signs? Signs, like dreams or indications.
Inshallah, it's good to take a good ishara from subtle signs. Allah Ta'ala shows us subtle things that can be a good indication, inshallah. But again, the reliance is on Him. We turn to Him. Even in those signs, we turn to Him and express our need for Him and are confident in Him. So always bring Allah back in the picture, not the sabab or the sign. And Allah knows best. That's what we were taught. Alhamdulillah. Anything else? No? Oh. Last one.
Prophet Ibrahim and Jibreel alayhi salam.
Yeah.
What about asking something from the Prophet Muhammad? Because sometimes sometimes you see in mosques like signs, Ya Allah, Ya Muhammad.
Yeah.
Is that kind of tawheed?
Yeah, I'm going to go with his ishara. I'm going to take the sign to end class before that question, because that's it'll take a long time, I think, to do that, inshallah. But alhamdulillah. And we'll make dua and maybe we can address that next class, inshallah. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين.